ओम ज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनाशलाखाय चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरून् श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सार्वधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपदान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनीति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधो जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धून एव च पतितानं पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Welcome devotees for this wonderful another session. We are on mantra 12, I guess. Yeah. Andham, maybe you all can repeat after me. Andham tama pravishyanti.
Andham tama pravishyanti.
Ye sambhutim upasate.
Ye sambhutim upasate.
Tato bhuya ivate tamo.
Tato yate tamo.
Yayu sambhutyam rataha.
Yayu sambhutyam rataha.
It is rataha, okay? Yeah, thank you so much. Those who are engaged in the worship of demigods enter into the darkest region of ignorance. And still more, so do the worshippers of the impersonal absolute. So actually over here in this, they're talking about two kind of worshippers. One is the demigod worshippers. Okay. And what is the gati or what is the destination of the demigod worshippers? And what is the destination of the worshippers of the absolute truth? Fine. So we'll just see. Indriyani Mataji, please read this paragraph.
Yes, Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hari Bol.
The Sanskrit word asambhuti refers to those who have no independent existence. Sambhuti is the absolute personality of Godhead, who is absolutely independent of everything. In the Bhagavad Gita 10.2, the absolute personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna states, Name vidu suya ganaha prabhavam na maharsayah aham adirhi devanam maharsinam cha sarvashah. Neither the hosts of demigod nor the great sages know my origin or opulences, for in every respect I am the source of the demigods and sages. Thus, Krishna is the origin of the powers delegated to demigods, great sages, and mystics. Although they are endowed with great powers, these powers are limited, and thus it is very difficult for them to know how Krishna himself appears by his own internal potency in the form of a man.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mataji. Mohana Mataji, you're there. Please read this paragraph.
Okay, Hare Krishna Mataji. Many philosophers and great rishis are or mystics try to distinguish the absolute form, absolute from the relative by their tiny brain power. This can only help them reach the negative conception of the absolute without realizing any positive trace of the absolute. Definition of the absolute by negation is
No,
the not complete.
it is negation.
Negation is not complete. Such negative definition lead one to create a concept of one's own. Thus, one imagines that the absolute must be formless and without qualities. Such negative qualities are simple the reversals of relative material qualities and are therefore also relative. By conceiving of the absolute in this way, one can at the utmost reach the impersonal effulgence of God, known as Brahman, but one cannot make further progress to Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead.
Yeah. Kalyani
Such
Mataji, you're there. Kalyani Mataji, yeah, please read this third paragraph.
Such mental speculators do not know that the absolute personality of Godhead is Krishna, that the impersonal Brahman is the glaring effulgence of his transcendental body, or that the Paramatma, the super soul, is his all pervading plenary representation. Nor do they know that Krishna has his eternal form with its transcendental qualities of eternal bliss and knowledge. The dependent demigods and great sages imperfectly consider him to be a powerful demigod, and they consider the Brahman effulgence to be the absolute truth. But the devotees of Krishna, by dint of their surrendering unto him and their unalloyed devotion, can know that he is the absolute person and that everything emanates from him. Such devotees continuously render loving service unto Krishna, the fountainhead of everything. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you so much. So now in this particular, the shloka, that is mantra 12, we are comparing from mantra 12 to mantra 14, we'll be comparing worship of the absolute to the worship of the relative. And there are a lot of guidelines being given over here for practice. What is a right form of worship? What is the wrong form of worshipping the Supreme Lord or the demigods, the impersonal or the Supreme Person? So if I want to give a title for this 12th shloka to the 14th shloka, it is giving us the guidelines for practice of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we have a choice. Either we keep on taking birth and death, or then we live a permanent eternal life. So now, so far in the previous mantras, we have received guidelines for acquiring knowledge, and Shri Shomish is going on giving us guidelines for Arvind. Spiritual practices from mantra 12 to mantra 14. And there are different types of even non-devotees, and how they are achieving different degrees of even misfortune. So now if we want to advance nicely as a devotee, we must understand both the wonderful nature of spiritual life and the defects of the material life also, that is culminating in understanding the the Supreme Lord's position as he's the supreme absolute truth. So we may actually worship the Supreme or we may not, but without eternal life we do not have anything. If you do not have a permanent life or an eternal life, then you're just keeping on rolling into the, cycle of birth and death. So now if we see that from mantra 9 to mantra 11 and mantra 12 to mantra 14, now the speaker is going to be more specific about what are the principles which he spoke from mantra 9, 10 and 11. So if you see, there is a word called asambhuti. Asambhuti means which is taking towards darkness, and sambhuti means greater darkness. So who are the asambhutis? Those who worship the demigods, they are actually asambhuti, means they will be taken into the darkest regions of this. And asambhuti also means that anything you worship other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead will take you to the darkness. And the knowledge of the material world, any knowledge that you are taking, of the demigods or the material world, and again that is going to take you to the material world. And now if you see this particular mantra, it is saying that worshippers of the demigods, where will they go? And worshippers of the impersonal absolute, where will they go? So if we see the connection, that 9, 10 and 11, they were comparing knowledge and science, vidya and avidya, and their respective destinations. Those who are in vidya, where will they go? Those who are in avidya, where will they go? But now in 12, 13 and 14, they will explain that the worship of the relative and the absolute. So cultivation of wrong knowledge, how it can be binding, and how can, and so too can improper conceptions also of the absolute truth. So we are finding very interesting parallels between this particular mantra, the 12th mantra, and the 9th mantra that we had already seen. So there are these two Sanskrit words that are used. Over there it is used avidyam, and over here they are using asambhutim. So avidyam means knee science, and over here asambhutim means demigod worship, right? So and in mantra, in mantra this we are seeing that vidyam is used and sambhutyam is used. So vidyam means knowledge and sambhutyam means the knowledge of the absolute over here. So both these particular mantras, they're describing of people who are opposing the Isavasya principle. Although these this particular verse, mantra 12, it is saying that demigod worshippers are also destined for duration, but even worse are those who are impersonalists, those who do not accept the form of the Lord. So there are many foolish people who are trying to realize the absolute truth by their mental speculation. But the Lord is beyond our, tiny intellect. And to try to realize him through, negating the material existence. Negation means, you do not accept. That's called negation. Material existence is also useless. So some people, they try to improve their living conditions by demigod worship. But still, they remain faced with the fundamental problems of material life, that is birth, death, old age, and disease. And the impersonalists may think that the absolute truth is not a person. But this conflict, with the opinions that is presented in the Upanishad. So Srila Prabhupada is also further chastising that, the Veda Vadarata and the Maya Aparita Jnana, these type, in the, mantra 9 we had seen, right? So over there, what did he say? That these people are most dangerous. He's used the word rogues. That these are most dangerous elements in the human society. Because if there is no religious government, then they escape the punishment of the laws of state. And nobody can, escape the law of the Supreme, who has, in the Bhagavad Gita, he has clearly declared that, the envious demons who are in the garb of religious protagonists shall be thrown into the darkest region. If you read 16th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, over there, I think it is 18, 19 and 20 shloka. Over there, it has been spoken about these religious propagandists. So now ISHOPANISHAD is actually confirming that whoever are these pseudo-religionists, and because they're heading towards the most obnoxious place in the universe after the completion of their spiritual, master's business, they will actually, only conduct sense gratification. And even if they enter the Brahmajyoti, they have to come down to this particular earth planet, and what work will they do? They will become philanthropists. Either they will open a hospital, or they will open a school or something like that. So they again have to come. So in this, the first 3 paragraphs that we read, these first 3 paragraphs, they're actually saying that what is the problem with impersonal conception? Impersonal conception, we cannot know the absolute truth. That is the problem with impersonal conception. So now, when we are trying to understand this particular impersonalist, so what they're doing that, they're using their tiny brains to distinguish, the absolute from the relative. And what is their understanding? Their understanding is that they create their own conception of an absolute truth. मन गढ़त conception बनाते हैं, mentally concocted. So what is wrong in this conception of the impersonalists or those who are mental speculators? So the problem with them is the problem is that they conclude that the absolute truth to be impersonal. They say that the absolute truth is formless. The absolute truth has no qualities. And to support them, who come behind them? Then these are the atheists who are coming behind them. And then their destination will be, at the most, they will reach to the Brahman platform, that is the Brahmajyoti platform. So now, how is this wrong? So, so we also have to actually defend these people in case we come across some people who say that the Lord is formless and the Lord is, does not have any qualities. So we can say that the Lord can run faster than even the, this of mind. And those who are running persons, and if the Lord can run more faster, then he is certainly a person, right? We've seen in the previous mantras that the Lord can run more faster than even the space of mind. So then the Lord's negative qualities are also relative. His impersonal effulgence is also coming from the Lord's body only, right? So when you have a sun planet, then the sun disk is emanating effulgence or, rays. Similarly, even the Lord's body is emanating some effulgence. So, and if you see in any of this ISHOPANISHAD mantra, not a single mantra is actually denying the personality of the Supreme Lord. Every mantra is establishing that the Lord is a person, Lord is a person, and he has a form, and he's the absolute truth. So then we should actually understand that the position of the absolute truth is that he's absolutely independent of anything. He's Sambhuti, and he's the absolute personality of Godhead, as told in the Bhagavad Gita 10.2. If you see that he is the absolute person. And even the source of demigods, sages and mystics, they also are confirming this, that the Supreme Personality of God is the absolute truth. And How is he appearing into the spiritual world? He's appearing into the spiritual world by his own internal potency in the form of a man whom you and I can identify very easily and who can relate to very easily. All right. So the Supreme Lord's form is the same in the spiritual world, how he had descended 5,000 years ago. He is Nava Yogendra. He's ever fresh. He is ever youthful. He's ever beautiful. It's not like that, today I am beautiful and tomorrow when I go 80 years old, all my teeth will be gone off, my hair will be white, and I'll be having wrinkles on my face. The Lord does not go through these changes. The Lord is, throughout, he is actually, his beauty is the same. It does not dwindle. It does not change. It does not disappear. So these differences between the human beings or the Supreme Lord, we should know. And that is why, uh, uh, you know, uh, three people cannot understand the absolute truth. One is the impersonalist, who are the mental speculators. One is the demigod worshippers, those who are having high faith in the demigod worship. And then those who are the pseudo devotees. Pseudo devotees means what? They pose themselves to be devotees, but they are not devotees. They come to the Supreme Lord with some intention to get something fulfilled. And once it is fulfilled, then they are just doing, business with the Lord. बनियागिरी जिसको बोलते हैं हिंदी में, तो they are just doing, exchange with the Lord. You give me this, I'll give you this. You give me this, I'll give you this. I'll do this for you, you do this for me. So Prahlad Maharaj has completely condemned this type of worship. Prahlad, when Lord Narasimhadev, he is asking Prahlad that you ask a boon. So Prahlad Maharaj is saying that I am not a merchant who will actually ask you something in return of my devotional service. And if ever you want to give me something, then you please give me that I may always remain in the association of devotees and I may never drift from the association of devotees. So this is what pure devotees aspire for. And pseudo devotees, they just want to do, len den. They just want to do business with the Supreme Lord. So now, now with these, demigod worshippers, so for them, Krishna is another, powerful demigod. They don't consider Krishna to be the supreme personality of Godhead. This is their understanding. And why do they worship demigods? Because, of not having sufficient intelligence. They are bewildered also. And, they have a very strong desire for sense gratification. And they want temporary relief from, the miseries that are currently going on in their life. Say, for example, somebody's business is not working, somebody's daughter is not getting married, or somebody's husband is not, having good relations with him, or the wife is not having good relations with the husband. That is why then, these people take, the shelter of the demigods. So the destination of these demigods will be that those who worship the sun, they will go to the sun planet. Those who worship the moon, they will go to the moon planet. But ultimately, again, they have to come to this earth planet so that they can perfect their lives and then go back home, back to Godhead. So what are they doing? What are the demigods worshippers doing? They are actually again and again falling into the cycle of, birth and death. But now, what is the problem with these planets? These planets are also temporary. These are also temporary, residents of, these planets are not very permanent. And still these planets, they remain in the darkest region of the universe. Like, just as, a coconut is covered tight with, a big shell that way. So now, how, so for example, somebody might ask that, how are these people really reaching to moon planet? Somebody might be very eager to know that how are they reaching to these different planets. So either they reach through spaceships or through mystic powers, black magic and any other anima, lagima, all these mystic powers that are there by doing hatha yoga and dhyan yoga, or then by doing demigod worship. And these pseudo worshippers, who are they? These are cheaters who become religionists for name and fame. So these pseudo, I said that they just do, they just keep on doing barter exchange with the Lord, or they don't want to actually get out of the material world and go to the spiritual world. And they just want to live in these, they think that these golden shackles of the, material world, they are actually, very nice. And they want to just remain in the, shadow of this philanthropic work that they are doing. They think, okay, I am actually have opened 10 hospitals. I'm very, happy. And I want to just remain happy that, like this only. So that because I have opened so many hospitals and all, I'm getting so much of name and fame. So now to maintain that particular status in this material world, in the garb of worshipping the Supreme Lord, then they keep on desiring and they keep on worshipping the Lord, unaware of his supreme position. So their position is that they do not have knowledge and detachment from this material world or the material affairs. So for example, a philanthropist is very attached to his work. He feels that, okay, this is all in all for me. And what activities do? They are actually, sometimes these people even pose themselves as incarnations of the Supreme Lord. मैं भगवान का अवतार हूँ, मैं भगवान जैसे. So they are directly violating the Vedic injunctions. They don't even worship demigods according to the scriptures, and they will show false sentiments also. And sometimes they even engage in immoral acts. Now in the news we have seen many things, right, of these immoral acts when a particular Babaji or a particular this Swami, he is actually having his own matha or ashram, and he goes around having illicit sex with women and all. So this is called an immoral act. Or he might become a mafia under the garb of a spiritualist, and they do not have any respect for the previous acharyas or the current acharyas. And they do not know what is the worship of an acharya, how to worship an acharya. They do not know all these things. So now all these three, those who are there, okay. So what is the problem with impersonal conception? That when you have an impersonal conception, you cannot know the absolute truth. And that is why this word asambhuti means what? That those who have no independent existence. So if you see the word-to-word translation, they are demigods, okay. Even the demigods do not have any independent existence. They are also dependent on the Supreme. They are also dependent on the Supreme. And Sambhuti is the absolute personality of Godhead or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is independent of everything. Like in the first canto, the first shloka, which says that Janmadi yasya yata Anvayad itarastha charshetva abhigya swarata. Abhigya and swarata. Swarata means the Lord is completely independent. And that is why Krishna is the origin of all the power that is actually delegated to all the great, sages or the mystics. But even though they are, having such great powers, these powers are also limited. And with these limited powers, it is very difficult to know Krishna, who appears by his own eternal potency in the form of a human being. So if you see all the demigods, so if the demigods would have had great power, then why didn't Brahma know that, okay, this particular cowherd boy is the supreme personality of Godhead himself? If the demigods had such great powers, why didn't Indra know that, this is the supreme personality of Godhead who has come? And why did he actually shower torrents of rain in Vrindavan? And why did the Lord had to pick up this Govardhan? So, these are Maya Aparita Jnana. They are trying to distinguish the absolute from the relative with, the tiny brain, and which can only give us actually a negative conception of the absolute truth without realizing his, positive traits or the positive qualities of the Supreme Lord. And if you see the result of such of such understanding is that these negative definitions, they are leading only one to create a concept of their own. And concept of their own means they're just trying to imagine that, okay, the Supreme Lord must be, the formless or without qualities. And the problem with this negative conception is that these qualities are just simply reversals of the relative truth, the material qualities, and therefore they are relative. So by conceiving the absolute truth in this way, one can at the most to reach to the impersonal effulgence of the Supreme Lord known as Brahman. But one cannot make further progress towards the personality of Godhead or the Bhagwan concept of the Supreme Lord. So, and these mental speculators, they do not know only that the absolute truth is, is Krishna, and that the, his impersonal Brahman is the glaring effulgence of his transcendental body, or that the Paramatma is the super soul, who is, who is all pervading as his planetary expansion. Also, they also do not know that Krishna has his eternal form in the spiritual world with his transcendental qualities of eternity, bliss, or knowledge. So they do not have this particular knowledge also. And that is why the people who are dependent on the demigods and sages and all, they are considering him to be a very powerful demigod. They consider this only Brahman effulgence to be the absolute, but they do not know that behind the Brahman effulgence is a personality who is standing and who is controlling this whole cosmic manifestation. So now the devotees of Krishna, what do? The devotees of Krishna, they actually surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And how do they surrender? They surrender through their unalloyed devotion. And when they surrender to the Supreme Lord or to the Absolute Person, then and they know that everything is emanating from him. So such devotees are continuously rendering loving service to the Supreme Lord, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They know that, I have to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and in loving devotional service, they love the Supreme Lord. It's not like that somebody has to force them. So there are two types of impersonalist. One is the Mayavadis and one is the Brahmavadis. So the Mayavadis we have seen in the 7th chapter, in the 9th chapter. If you all want to know about the Mayavadis, then read Bhagavad Gita 7.24. And for Mayavadis, another shloka in the 9th chapter, 14th and 15th shloka. These are, you'll come to know who are the exact Mayavadis, because still people have a lot of confusion with Mayavadis and Brahmavadis. And Brahmavadis, if you want to know, then go to chapter 12, 3rd shloka, 3rd, 4th and 5th shloka. And these Mayavadis, they, actually offend the form of the Lord. The Brahmavadis, they do not offend the form of the Lord. They just want to merge into. So the Brahmavadis' progress is slow. Either they do not know the Lord has a form, or since they didn't have association of devotees, their attraction didn't arise. And Mayavadis, we know that they are mudas. They are rascals according to Srila Prabhupada. Avajanandi mama muda. So this impersonal conception in the scriptures is given about the in the scriptures is actually transitional. It is not actually final. So when the Bhagavatam is saying, so if you see in the Vedas, this karma kanda is actually given, religious materialism. Above them is the Upanishad, where they are giving Jnana Kanda or impersonalism while going from, the material to the spiritual form. But Bhagavatam, if you see, Bhagavatam is giving a very, very straightforward, spiritual form of the Supreme Lord, and Bhakti to be the highest. There is no compromise in this. Bhagavatam is straightaway explaining that only Bhakti to the Supreme Lord is the final word. So now if you see that, I won't actually get into that whole, Mayavad philosophy, but in case you all want to know something about the Mayavads and all, I will definitely help you all out for understanding. Maybe we can have a separate session only for Mayavadi, Brahmavadi. So then, so if you see that the Mayavadis, they are thinking that, okay, the material form of the Supreme Lord is temporary and limited. And they are wrong, that all forms are temporary and limited. And so the demigod worshippers, okay. So when there is a transition is considered as permanent, it becomes actually very lethal. And Prabhupada, that is why, has used very heavy, or he was very heavy on, the Mayavad philosophy. So this is what is actually in this 1st, 2nd and 3rd. Again, Prabhupada is outrightly actually smashing the Mayavad philosophy. So to justify Mayavad based on the scripture is very difficult, because it has many places. Scriptures talk about personalities and relationships. So Mayavadis, they try to justify by saying that whatever scriptures talk about the form, it is lower level of teaching. And their actual teaching is confidential. So scriptures also have a Mahavakya. Mahavakya means a bigger Vakya, and Lagu Vakya means a smaller Vakya. So their Mahavakyas are like, Tat Tvam Asi or Brahmasmi. So these are, absolute truths, and other teachings are lower, they are saying. So any scripture's statement that contradicts their idea is rejected as lower teaching. So why did Shankaracharya do this? Why did he propagate the Mayavad philosophy? So he propagated to bring from the Buddhism to the, Vedic fold. And why was Buddhism preached at that point of time? So Buddha is an incarnation of the Supreme Lord, right? So Buddhism was preached to stop people from misusing the Vedas and killing animals. Buddhism is actually not atheistic, but it is a non-theistic, as Buddha did not talk about God. Buddha only spoke about, practicing morality, right conduct, right speech, or ahimsa, So it is actually like a pre-thesistic. It created a base from which thesism could be understood, right, properly. So, but Buddha, had a, he had his own charisma, or he had his own, charm. And that's how Buddhism spread far and wide. And then the temporary arrangement of, this Buddhism became like a full-time religion. So Adi Shankaracharya, he did a lot of debate and brought people back to this Vedic fold. But because Buddhism was, very widely spread and he couldn't give a complete conclusion of the Vedas, so then he said that you want Shunya, but the Vedas also talk about the name of Brahman. And then Brahman and Shunya are like, intellectual clone sort of a thing. But both are same with different, names. And Lord Adi Shankaracharya was Lord Shiva himself, who on the order of Lord Vishnu taught this Mayavad philosophy. So the conclusion of Mayavad is that we are God. The conclusion of impersonal is that material forms are false and we have to go beyond this. But what is there beyond the material form is not very clearly described in the Upanishads. For that, we have to go to the, Sattvic Puranas. And that's how, in the history, then the entry of Ramanujacharya came. And that time, Shankara's hold on the society was greater than that of science today. Because today science is holding a greater position. So to completely reject him was not possible. To completely reject, Shankaracharya. So Ramanujacharya said that yes, there is oneness, but there is a speciality also. Advaita is there, but there is difference also. There is the Vishishta Advaita then. So he taught scriptures talk about relationships also. Relations about whom? The relationship of the Supreme Lord and the Jivas. So there is oneness also and there is difference also. So, and if you see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he came and he propagated Achintya Bheda Bhed Tattva. So, Ramanujacharya is arguing that the personal parts also of the scriptures are false. Then majority of the scriptures are also false. So, are the teachings of these scriptures or imposing our ideas correct or wrong? So then, Madhvacharya, he came and he said that no similarity is there, but there is everything is different. And the Jagat and the Jagdisha, or the Supreme Lord and this material world, they both are different. So then where is the similarity? So Shankaracharya is on one extreme, Ramanujacharya is somewhere in the center, and Madhavacharya is completely on another extreme. But now Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu brought again a balance. So if Shankaracharya is, he's saying only one, then Madhava is saying that two. And Mahaprabhu has had his two hands in the sky. Yes, there are two, but there is a joyful, loving relationship between the two filled with ecstasy. And then came Jiva Goswami. Jiva Goswami also confided the Lord Chaitanya's teachings that are there. Two questions are fatal for Mayavada. He says that if all are one, where does illusion come from then? Brahma, they say no, that Brahma Satya, Jagat Mithya. So where does this Mithya come from? And how does illusion come from Brahman? So is there illusion? Is illusion supreme or Brahman is the supreme then? So then, just give me 1 minute, okay? So then, they are actually, trying to answer that is illusion supreme or Brahman supreme. So then when they're trying to answer, then they're saying, oh, reality is so complex, it cannot be put into words. And then in one of his book of His Grace Ravindra Swarup Prabhu, Endless Love, he says that some Mayavadis actually they came from Philadelphia, and they carried these posters in essence that you are God, and they decided to go and program it everywhere. So then somebody is asking that, okay, if the Krishna meditated and became God, but he killed Putana also. Then when he was less than a month old also. So when did he meditate then? So then we have to go beyond illusion. We have to go beyond the words. And we are, we are speaking for 2 or 3 hours. Actually, it's not illusion. So when we ask questions, words also become, the source of illusion sometimes. So then the achintya that Jiva Goswami talks is different from anirvachaniya. Achintya means, though everything in the scripture is correct, with our finite intelligence, we may not understand how it may be true. But doesn't mean a part of the scripture is false. Say, for example, okay, Mother Yashoda is binding Krishna, right? She is binding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now the Supreme Lord is running. Mother Yashoda is running behind the Supreme Lord, and she is unable to, catch the Supreme Lord. So there is a comparison that, okay, the biggest yogis also cannot, and Mother Yashoda here is trying to, catch. And she catch hold of him. She even tries to bind him, but he's not bound. He's not getting bound. Every time there is a 2-finger gap in that binding, and it is very difficult. But ultimately, when she actually surrenders, she actually is, she's endeavoring, and ultimately the Lord's hearts melt, and the Lord's mercy showers on her, and then he gets bound, right? Now over here, if you see this particular Leela, okay, so Yogamaya is there, Lord's other Shaktis are also there, they are also participating in these Leelas, okay? The Lord has many energies. So one of his energies is Achintya Shakti or Achintya. Achintya means inconceivable. We cannot understand the minute intricacies of that, Leela. That how is it that Lord is getting bound? How is it that the Lord is holding the Govardhan with his, small finger? So, people reject this. Oh, it's not possible. He has picked, he has, picked up the Govardhan. And it is not possible. So it might seem, that we may not understand how, it may be true, but it doesn't mean that, whatever Leelas of the Supreme Lord have been mentioned in the Bhagavatam is false. So Achintya, that Achintya Leela or Achintya is glorification of the Lord. While this Anirvachaniya is like an insult to the Lord. So if you and me, for example, are more, one Brahman, then why my liberation does not lead to your liberation? Okay, because why? We both are different entities, right? Then again, there's a logical problem that, actually you're so liberated, but you have not realized it. So what is stopping me from realizing? So illusion is that thing that is stopping me from realizing. So who is controlling me? Illusion is controlling me. And we are thinking that only illusion illusion is controlling. So illusion is even above the Brahman. And that is why, they are right. Material forms and temporary forms, material forms are temporary and limited. And they are wrong also. All forms are temporary and limited. And when transitional is considered as permanent, then it becomes very lethal. And that is why Prabhupada is very heavy on this Mayavad philosophy. Okay. So let's go to the next. I'm sure it must be very technical for you all. And for some people, it's going bonkers. But don't worry. अगर bonkers भी जा रहा है तो कोई problem नहीं है. आपने सिर्फ सुना है. That must only enough for you all. Okay. So at many times, at many stages, it is not necessary to know all things. Krishna will reveal certain things when the correct time comes. Because in every lecture, you might not understand in every lecture, everything you might not understand. You might understand something, you might have a proper understanding of something and apply something. You might hear everything, but apply nothing. You might hear everything, but apply something. So don't worry, I'm sure it is very, very technical, the Mayavad, Brahmavadi, for me also in my initial days of Krishna consciousness, when this ISHOPANISHAD classes were going on in Vrindavan, and these classes used to go in peak afternoon timings after having lunch. And you can just imagine that after lunch, if you're going to listen to these classes, which are so very technical, it's going to just, and even that time, even I had a very poor understanding. So as in when you keep on maturing, then definitely there'll be a better understanding. But over here, what we are trying to establish is that two things. What is the destination of the demigod worshippers and what is the destination of the impersonalists? Okay, let's go to the next paragraphs. So even if you are sleeping, not a problem at all. Okay, but at least your Atma is listening to these classes. Okay. Yeah, who's going to read?
Mataji, one question before you proceed, if it's all right.
Yeah, sure.
So if we talk about demigods, I'll just take you back a little. We have 4 sampradayas, we've learned that. So according to each sampradaya, whatever, let's say the Rudra sampradaya, they believe in Shiva. So according to them, he is the supreme. So for those people, won't all the other gods, including Krishna, be demigods?
Yeah, this is a very good question actually. But if you see, ultimately those who are worshipping Lord Shiva, they will, the Lord Shiva being pleased by their worship is going to direct them to Lord Krishna only. Why? Because Lord Shiva's master is also Lord Krishna only. So they will be divert. But currently, because they have an attraction for Lord Shiva, they will worship and they will have faith in Lord Shiva. But Lord Shiva will definitely, see, what is the problem with the, demigod worshippers? The problem with the demigod worshippers is that they do only barter exchange with the Lord. But if somebody is a very ardent worshipper of Shiva, Lord Shiva, that Shiva, you do that thing what is best for me. You do that only thing which is good for my own, soul. Then Lord Shiva will definitely direct. But if they're doing only, barter exchange with Shiva and, they're doing just, Banyagiri with, Lord Shiva, then Lord Shiva might give them everything. But then they will not reach to that final destination. So in between these, Kumar Sampradaya also and, the Rudra Sampradaya also, then if you have the highest stages of also worshippers and who are selfless, they worship Lord Shiva not for gaining something. They worship Lord Shiva very selflessly. So very selflessly also Lord Shiva will, bestow them that, okay, go to, Lord Krishna. Ultimately, somehow they are worshipping the pure devotee of the Lord. Vaishnavam Yatha Shambho. Among the Vaishnavas also, Lord Shiva stands, as the prime Vaishnava. So then Lord Shiva will direct them to Lord Krishna. Okay, Mataji?
Thank you. Ma'am, one more question, Mataji. Sorry.
Yes.
You had talked about pseudo worshippers. So this is again a very basic question. Lord is supreme. He's our Father. So on the one hand, you're saying that they're seeking from God and they make it a Banyagiri. But the other side is that if you don't seek from God, who else do you seek from?
Yeah, so Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says that 4 type of people come to me. 4 type of people come to me. So initially they might ask, but when the Lord is providing them, then they should have that realization that yes, there is some supreme Lord and there is something. Then they should become inquisitive. If you see out of those 4 people that are there, those who are in distress, or those who are in seek of wealth, those who are inquisitive, and those who just come for general thing. Out of them, Krishna says those who are inquisitive are better than all the other 3. So then that inquisitiveness should be for what? That inquisitiveness should be for, knowing the absolute truth. And then you should inquire, okay, who am I? From where have I come? Where do I have to go? And who is this person who is supplying me everything? Who is this person? I want to know him. So, many times you must have heard in the lecture that, when you go to a king and you say, Mujhe 5 paisa do, the king might just laugh at you that, Arey, I am able to give so much to you all. You ask me something better than this, right? So similarly, if you say that Krishna, I want your friendship, then in the spiritual world, you become Krishna's very good friend as a Gopa. So is that position better, or a temporary position over here in the material world is better? So that way. Okay, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji.
Yeah, Atima Mataji, please read this paragraph.
In the Bhagavad Gita 7.2023, it is said that only unintelligent, bewildered persons driven by a strong desire for sense gratification worship the demigods for the temporary relief of temporary problems. Since the living being is materially entangled, he has to be relieved from material bondage entirely to attain permanent relief on the spiritual plane, where eternal bliss, life, and knowledge exist. Shri Ishopanishad therefore instruct that we should not seek temporary relief of our difficulties by worshipping the dependent demigods who can bestow only temporary benefit. Rather, we must worship the absolute personality of Godhead Krishna, who is all attractive and who can bestow upon us complete freedom from material bondage by taking us back home, back to Godhead. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Sushil Prabhu, please read this paragraph. Sushil Prabhu is there. Lakshminarayan Prabhu, please read this paragraph.
Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita 7.23 that the worshippers of demigods can go to the planets of demigods. The moon worshippers can go to the moon, the sun worshippers to the sun, etc. Modern scientists are now venturing to the moon with the help of rockets, but this is not really a new attempt. With their advanced consciousness, human beings are naturally inclined to travel in outer space and to reach other planets, either by spaceships, mystic powers, or demigod worship. In the Vedic scriptures, it is said that one can reach other planets by any one of these 3 ways, but the most common way is by worshipping the demigod residing over a particular planet. In this way, one can reach the moon planet, the sun planet, and even Brahmaloka, the topmost planet in this universe. However, all planets in the material universe are temporary residences The only permanent planets are the Vaikuntha Lokas. These are found in the spiritual sky.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Where, okay, sorry, Mataji, it's delayed. When I turned the page, it took more time. Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Yeah, as the Lord states in the Bhagavad Gita. Okay. Okay. There is more to it. Okay. Please read, Prabhu. Sorry. I didn't see it. I didn't see. My mistake. Sorry.
Sorry, Mataji.
Ah,
Where the personality of Godhead himself predominates. As Lord Krishna states the Bhagavad Gita 8.16, Abrahma Bhuvanal Loka Punar Avartino Arjuna Mam Upetya tu Kaunteya Punar Janma Vidyate. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery wherein repeated birth and death take place. But one who attains my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. Thank you.
okay. So now in these three paragraphs, paragraph number 4, 5, and 6. Okay, these three paragraphs, they are primarily, they'll be speaking about what is the problem with demigod worship. And the results that are obtained are actually temporary. So, karma kanda won't work in this age as it can't be, properly applied today. And today, people worship demigods with an intention of sense enjoyment as all in all. They think that, okay, if I worship this demigod, I'll be more rich, I can do more sense gratification. And then you have the, Vedavada Rathas. So, the only unintelligent people who are bewildered people driven by, very strong sense of sense gratification. They're worshipping the demigods only for some temporary relief of their temporary problems. But now Krishna is saying that these demigod worshippers are less intelligent, while the impersonalists are abuddhaya, or no intelligence at all. So the living entity has to be relieved from this material bondage entirely to attain a permanent relief on the spiritual plane. So where there will be eternity, bliss, and knowledge is existing. Now, that is why ISHOPANISHAD is instructing us that we should not seek any temporary relief of our difficulties by worshipping, the demigods and be dependent on the demigods. So with their advanced consciousness, the human beings will be, inclined to travel, in outer space or reach the other planets or, either some spaceships or mystic powers or demigod worships. But in Vedic scriptures, it is said that anyone can reach to the other planets by any of the three ways. But the most common way is by worshipping the demigod, which is presiding over a particular planet. So, for example, a sun planet has its own demigod, moon planet has its own demigod. So, all the planets in the material universe, these are all temporary residents. The only permanent planet is the Vaikuntha Lokas. So, now if anybody who is worshipping the demigods, he will attain what? He will attain that particular material planet. And that material planet is also in the darkest region of this particular universe. Why? Because the material world in itself is only dark. Andham kupam, this is what we say. So the Vedic system, of multi-level worship bears only, that a unique concern for individuality of a worshipper. So, for example, a prince who is leaving, his father who is also king, and he starts working for a, common man for a salary, for a gross material, things. And then the father sends, a man in disguise, and he tells that, he tells the son that he will pay more. So this prince starts working for, him, right? So it's exactly like that particular son is the living entity. The father is the supreme lord. And that again, that man who's in disguise is actually the demigod. And this particular person starts working for the demigod, and he starts doing karma kanda. Now slowly this prince, he comes to know that, this man whom he's working for, that man is working for his father. So the living entity comes to know that, okay, this demigod also has a master who is Krishna. So then he starts getting a feeling that, okay, my father is a very nice man. So now he starts working for the father, but still he wants salary. And he does not want to take the whole kingdom. So these people are like, the Sakam Bhaktas. And then, like later on, then slowly, later he completely comes back to the father and he says that, okay, and he starts working as a prince, that, okay, I am the prince of this. So then, it is Nishkam Bhakti, that, okay, I will work, but I will not work from, point of view that I want something. So now if you see this example of demigod worshippers who have been, elevated. So if we see in the history where Vallabhacharya, he was a worshipper of Shiva and Vishnu. So he had some problems. He prayed very fervently, Lord Shiva, please give whatever is most dear to you. Juhi Mataji, this will answer your question. So then Lord Shiva gave the deity of Krishna. And then he became a very happy worshipper of Krishna. So this is Vallabh. So, we have one sampradaya called the Vallabh Sampradaya. But if you see, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had also met Vallabhacharya and changed his way of thinking. Then you have, in the history, you have, who was that Digvijay Pandit whom Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had defeated? What was his name? There was a debate and
Keshav Kashmiri. Keshav Kashmiri.
Keshav Kashmiri. Keshav Kashmiri, he was a worshipper of Saraswati, right? So then, he got a benediction that you will beat everybody in, Tark Vitark or Shastra. So who defeated him? Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu defeated him. And then, he requested goddess Saraswati for clarification, and he fell asleep. And then the goddess came in his dream. So she says that I did not forsake you, but I told you that not to be defeated by anyone in this world. So she says that the Lord is not of this world. He is the master of my master also. Who is the master of Mother Saraswati? And his master also. So then that is the, second example of the demigod worshippers who had been elevated. Then you have another worshipper who was the worshipper of Mother Kali. He was Chandidas. Yes. He actually worshipped Kali, and his brother was worshipping Shaligram Shila. So this Chandidas had, beautiful flowers, and brother used to offer it to, Shaligram. So later on, the brother just wished he could offer the flower to only Shaligram. Then that became like, Manas Puja. So then when Chandidas offered flower to Chandi, she appeared in the dream and said that, no, I'm pleased. How? So then they saying, you offered flowers to Vishnu, because he was giving flowers to Shaligram indirectly, and his brother was offering it. So then she said, oh, Vishnu's worship is supreme. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Then he was asking, Mother Goddess Kali. So then he's telling, because you pleased me extra today. And that is how this Chandidas, he became a worshipper of Vishnu. So from this gross materialism, demigod worship is surely a very step forward. If it is a path of progression towards Krishna, then it is beneficial. But if people keep the concept that their demigod worship is only supreme or their demigod is only supreme, then these people do not progress. And this book is actually discussing about this possibility only. But for the devotees of Vishnu, it is a step backwards. If you're doing demigod worship, then you're taking steps behind. Okay. So, Krishna gives faith to a person to worship a particular demigod, to keep him in his fold. Because the king, just like the king is giving some faith to his son in his minister so that one day he will return to his kingdom. So the Supreme Lord is giving faith as Paramatma. He's giving faith also as the Puranas, where different demigods, are glorified. So if Krishna has created this system, what is the problem with it? It can go on like that also. But Krishna is giving an answer. He's saying that the fruits of worshipping them are only temporary. While the same effort, what they are making to worship the Supreme Lord, then that will be eternal. And this is what is being said in these, 3 paragraphs that we just read.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Krishna?
Hare Krishna Mataji. Mataji, I have one question.
Yes, Prabhu.
Mataji, I want to ask, if someone after coming to Krishna consciousness, he tries to practice Krishna consciousness and still he wants to get out of the miseries. He prays to Krishna to get out of the miseries so that he can practice in a better way, or he can serve the Krishna in a better way. So is it also the same like demigod worshippers, or a kind of business with Krishna? Or when he wants to go back to Godhead, it is also similar to that?
So in the initial stage, what happens, I'll tell you, Prabhu. In the initial stage, when you go and ask Krishna, now that I'm having so many miseries, please help me, I want to worship you and all. So this is a preliminary stage of a devotee. Okay. Krishna will, help you get out of those miseries how much you deserve. Okay, calamities, jitna aap deserve karte ho, wo nikalenge to enhance your faith or to develop your faith in Krishna. फॉर एग्जाम्पल आपने जाके कुछ मांगा है भगवान से, लेकिन भगवान आपकी डिफिकल्टी सॉल्व ही नहीं करेंगे, या कुछ आपने जो मांगा ही विल नॉट सॉल्व ओनली, देन यू विल लूज फेथ इन हिम. सो इन द इनिशियल स्टेज Krishna might give you what you deserve, but an advanced devotee, the one who has complete faith in the Supreme Lord, he will not ask to reduce his calamities, because whenever these calamities, whenever these difficulties, whenever these atrocities come on a devotee, that devotee knows that this is because I am deserving it, this because of my own past misdeeds, and I have to tolerate them. What is that shloka in the 10th canto? Tattenu kampa samikshamanam bunjan evatma kritam vipakam ridvag vapurubhir vidavdhan namaste jiveta yo mukti padesa dayabhag. So over there it says that those who are earnestly waiting for Krishna to bestow his causeless mercy upon him, they will wait very patiently, suffering the reactions of their past misdeeds. while offering respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord in their own hearts by body, mind, and words. And such people will become eligible for liberation, for it has become their rightful heir. So if you see in the life of Mother Kunti, she did not complain. She did not say, Krishna, please, get mere miseries ko nikal dijiyega. She's saying, give me more calamities. Because when you will give me calamities, I will remember you all the time. And remembering you all the time means coming out of the circle of birth and death. So an advanced devotee will ask this, how much ever atrocities, like for example, Pandavas, these all were very advanced devotees. And just imagine, okay, the dilemma. Lord Krishna is with them all the time as their support system, but still they are going under calamities. Still they are not complaining Lord Krishna. The Lord Krishna is a relative, so they should not say, oh, we are your relatives, इतना तो थोड़ा हमारा दया करो हम पे कि कितना बचपन से लेके अभी तक लाक्षाग्रह बोलो, पॉइजनिंग बोलो, कितना कुछ गेम्स खेला हमारे साथ, हमें वनवास में भी भेज दिया. Why to us only all these things? So advanced devotees don't think. But yes, in the initial stage, a devotee will ask, other than kahan pe jayega wo? Because he wants to consider Krishna as an all-in-all person. And he wants that, yes, I know I have faith in Krishna. Just as the demigod worshippers will have faith in the demigod, Krishna worshippers will have faith in Krishna, right? So if Krishna will not reduce their, pains to some level down, then how will they have faith in Krishna? So if you go and ask Krishna also that, Krishna, I am facing so and so difficulty. Please give me a solution to come out of this difficulty. Please give me this, that. I know I deserve these difficulties. Because of my past misdeed, these miseries are coming up to me. But I'm sure that I will pass through this examination of these difficulties, because these difficulties are like examinations for a devotee. कि इस डे डिफिकल्टी आई है तो क्या आप भगवान से विलग हो रहे हो, और यू स्टॉप वर्शिपिंग द सुप्रीम लॉर्ड, और यू स्टिल कंटिन्यू हैविंग फेथ इन द सुप्रीम लॉर्ड. And when you continue having that faith in the Supreme Lord, then you become rightful for liberation. Okay, Harsh Prabhu?
Yes, Mataji. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So we are on to the 7th paragraph. Just give me 1 minute, I need to share. Yeah, are we on this paragraph or this paragraph?
Mata, you have to start from Sri ISHOPANISHAD points out that.
Yeah.
From here, Mata.
Anshuman Prabhu, read this paragraph, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Sri ISHOPANISHAD points out that one who worships the demigods and attends to their material planet still remains in the darkest region of the universe. The whole universe is covered by the gigantic material elements. It is just like a coconut covered by a shell and half filled with water. Since its covering is airtight, the darkness within is dense, and therefore the sun and the moon are required for illumination. Outside the universe is the vast and unlimited Brahma Jyotir expansion, which is filled with Vaikuntha Lokas. The biggest and highest planet in the Brahma Jyotir is Krishna Loka, or Golaka Vrindavan, where the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna himself, resides. Lord Sri Krishna never leaves Krishna Loka. Although he dwells there with his eternal associates, he is omnipresent throughout the complete material and spiritual cosmic manifestations. This fact has already been explained in Mantra 4. The Lord is present everywhere, just like the sun, yet he is situated in one place, just as the sun is situated in its own undeviating orbit.
Yeah.
The problems of life cannot be solved simply by going to the moon planet or to some other planet above or below it. Therefore, Sri Ishopanishad advises us not to bother with any destination within this dark material universe, but to try to get out of it and reach the effulgent kingdom of God. There are many pseudo-worshippers who become religionists only for the sake of name and fame. Such pseudo-religionists do not wish to get out of this universe and reach the spiritual sky. They only want to maintain the status quo in the material world under the garb of worshipping the Lord. The atheists and impersonalists lead such foolish pseudo-religionists into the darkest regions by preaching the cult of atheism. The atheist directly denies the existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the impersonalists support the atheists by stressing the impersonal aspect of the Supreme Lord. Thus, far we have not come across any mantra in Sri Ishopanishad in which the Supreme Personality of Godhead is denied. It is said that he can run faster than anyone. Those who are running after other planets are certainly persons, and if the Lord can run faster than all of them, how can he be impersonal? The impersonal conceptions of the Supreme Lord is another form of ignorance, arising from an imperfect conception of the absolute truth.
Yeah, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
So we are just trying to complete this paragraphs as such. Mahendra Prabhu, please read this paragraph.
The Lord states that as soon as one reaches Him by devotional service, which is the one and only way to approach the personality of Godhead, one attains complete freedom from the bondage of birth and death. In other words, the path of salvation from the material clutches fully depends on the principles of knowledge and detachment gained from serving the Lord. The religionists have neither knowledge nor detachment from material affairs. For most of them want to live in the golden shackles of metal bondage under the shadow of philanthropic activities, disguised as religious principles. By false display of religious sentiments, they present a show of devotional service while indulging in all sorts of immoral activities. In this way, they pass as spiritual masters and devotees of God. Such violators of religious principles have no respect for the authoritative acharyas, the holy teachers in the strict disciplic succession. They ignore the Vedic injunction, Acharya Pasana, one must worship the Acharya, and Krishna's statement in the Bhagavad Gita 4.2, Evam Parampara Praptam. This supreme science of God is received through disciplic succession. Instead, to mislead the people in general, they themselves become so-called acharyas, but they do not even follow the principles of the acharyas.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. Rup Manohar Prabhu, please read this last paragraph.
Hare Krishna. These rogues, the most dangerous element in the human society, because there is no religion, no religious government. They escape punishment by the law of state. They cannot, however, escape the law of Supreme, who has clearly declared in Bhagavad Gita that envious demons in the grasp of the religious propagandists shall be thrown in the darkness region of the hell. Srimad Bhagavad Gita 16.19-20. Sri Upanishad confirm that these pseudo-religionists are heading toward the most obnoxious place in the universe after completion of their spiritual master business, which they conduct simply for sense gratification.
Yeah. So now if you see in these, 3 paragraphs that has been there. So these pseudo-religionists, they like modern Mayavadis, you call them, like, They are like the worst offenders, and they're most dangerous also. And then what is the solution then? When you're seeing all this, devotional service is the only solution. So problems of life cannot be solved simply by going to the moon planet or sun planet or any other planet, above or below. And in this book, they're advising us not to bother with any destination which is within the dark material universe. But we need to try to get out of this particular dark material world and reach the effulgent kingdom of God, where there is no darkness at all. Darkness means what? Darkness means that you do not know what is your relationship with the Supreme Lord. Darkness means that you do not know only who is supreme. Darkness means you do not only know from where have you come and where you have to go. And darkness means only suffering. You're suffering and suffering and suffering. Temporary relief you get. Thoda malam patti lagaya, temporary relief. But again, you are scratched. So these pseudo-religionists, they become religionists only for the sake of name and fame. This is what they're saying in that particular paragraph. And they do not wish to get out of this material universe and reach to that spiritual sky, which is the permanent abode of the Supreme Lord. And their permanent abode also, where they have come from and where they have to go. So, and these sort of religionists, what they want to maintain? They want to maintain their status in this material world, under the, pretext of worshipping the Supreme Lord. But the atheist and these impersonalists, they lead such foolish pseudo-religionists into the darkest region by preaching the cult of atheism to them. And the atheist, they're directly denying the existence of the Supreme Lord. And the impersonalists, they support this atheist by stretching the impersonal aspect of the Supreme Lord. So there is a tussle between the atheist and the impersonalist. So now, in any of the mantras so far that we have seen in ISHOPANISHAD, that none of the mantra has denied the superiority of the Supreme Lord. Why? Because it is said that he can run faster than anyone, and those who are running after the other planets, those are running after a certain planet, they are also people, they are also person. And if the Lord can run faster than them, then how can the Lord be impersonal? So this impersonal conception of the Supreme Lord is another form of ignorance, agyanta, arising from an imperfect conception of the Supreme Absolute Truth. When you don't have knowledge, then what will you do? You will think only, okay, Supreme Bhagwan jo hai, wo nirakar hi hai. So these ignorant pseudo-religionists and the manufacturers of so-called, incarnations who are directly violating the Vedic injunctions, these people will be liable to enter into the darkest region of the universe, because they are misleading those also who are following them. Right? So that is why now, if such foolish people or men, they have any knowledge at all, so it is more dangerous in their hand than ignorance itself. And these worshippers, they do not even worship the demigods according to according to scriptures. Because in the scriptures, there is a recommendation of worshipping demigods under certain circumstances. But at the same time, the scriptures even are stating that there is normally no need of doing this demigod worship also. So these people, they enter the material universe, which is impermanent. Whatever they have achieved in this, material existence of darkness, that is also impermanent. So then then somebody will ask them, or somebody will ask that, okay, how do I attain a real and a permanent life? So then the Lord is stating that as soon as one reaches to the Supreme Lord by devotional service, which is the only one and only one way to approach the personality of Godhead. He will attain full freedom from bondage of birth and death. So what is the one and only one way to approach the Supreme Lord? Is unalloyed devotional service. So when we think that, okay, I can ask, I can, demand, I can command the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord is, free of doing whatever he wants to do. Then, and this path of salvation from the material clutches, it will also depend on what principles of knowledge and detachment we have gained from serving the Supreme Lord. But the pseudo-religionists, they do not have any idea or knowledge nor detachment from their material affairs, because most of them, they are very happily want to live into these golden shackles of material bondage, under the garb or the shadow of philanthropic activities, saying that, okay, these are according to the religious principles that we are doing. So a false display of any religious sentiment, they present it as like a show of, we are doing bhakti or devotional service, but they are indulging in all immoral activities also under the pretext of doing devotional service. Now, such violators of religious principles, they have no respect even for the previous acharyas or the present acharyas also. And they ignore the injunctions also of the acharyas. So why? Because see, the religious principles, they say, okay, or the scriptures say that we should do acharya upasana. One must worship the acharya. And this is Krishna's statement in the Bhagavad Gita. Evam parampara praptam. So when you say worship of the acharya means you are following the instructions of the acharyas. That is called worship of the acharyas. It's not physical. Definitely physical is there also, that you're offering lamp, incense, flowers, that is also there. But the real worship of an acharya is when you follow the instructions of that particular acharya. And this science of God, it is revealed only through disciplic succession. You cannot gain this knowledge without any disciplic succession. It's just like that, you must have heard this analogy. You cannot just go into any building and get a doctor's degree. You cannot enter into any building or read any books and become a doctor. So instead to mislead the people in general, they themselves have become, they themselves have named that I am so-and-so acharya, I am so-and-so acharya. And they do not even follow the principles of the previous acharyas, who are bona fide acharyas, okay? I'm talking about bona fide acharyas, not those who just did sense gratification. And these, Prabhupada used that word in the last paragraph, he's using this word rogues. They are most dangerous in the human society because there is no religious government only. They will try to escape that punishment, and they cannot even understand what are the laws of the Supreme Lord. So they might try to escape the law of the Supreme, who has clearly declared, in the Bhagavad Gita, that these all people, they will go into the darkest regions of hell. And they will get that only destination. They have no other destination. So Prabhupada, had once told this particular story. The story is that two people who are afraid of going to hell. So one who is a liquor drinker, so he was chastising, this drunkard, that you will go to hell, my father, mother, brother, sister, etc. wife drank, so they will not mind, me going to hell. And Prabhupada gave another example of this coal miner, if you know that this Christian priest, how that Christian priest described how hell is like. It is hot, dark, and it's like burning coals are there, and burning liquid hot iron is there, and also like they're saying, okay, we don't mind going to this, but doesn't hell have a newspaper? Then we don't want to go to that hell. So people want to सिर्फ एक mere newspaper नहीं है वहां पे. That's why we don't want to go to hell. So now these modern Mayavadis, they are like a very dangerous hodgepodge khichdi type. Like Baldev Vidyabhushan, after so many generations of fighting these Vaishnavas, he defeated Mayavad philosophy. But then, the foreign rule, the Kshatriyas, the Brahmanas, they became very weak, and poverty was very perpetual. And that is why these foreign people, they try to convert people into Christianity. And Christianity, if we see, does not have much philosophy other than the 10 commandments that are there. And that too, that 10 commandments is not leading them to, the worship of the Supreme. So that is why then the Christians, they opened schools, hospitals and all. So think that you Hindus, you are so confused. Who is the Supreme? We have only one God, and since we love him, we serve him as his children. And then from the east side, the Bengali intellectuals, they are giving the answers that we should also do social service. So they came up with, slogans like, Nara Seva is Narayan Seva, Madhav Seva is only Manav Seva is only Madhav Seva. So they said that, okay, service to the poor is good. And for example, like, Prithu Maharaj, serving poor in itself is a devotional service. If not, it's like a spiritual education is provided. Like, so then these confusions were there. Now, Bhakti Siddhanta Sari Thakur and Prabhupada, they strongly criticize Mayavada. And then all these again nationalistic leaders also came up, and how to unite people worshipping different demigods, make one reality. All gods are Brahman only. They rejected Krishna and converted him only, like, as a metaphor to give interpretation of the Bhagavad Gita. So His Holiness, I remember in one of the lectures, His Holiness Jayadvat Swami Maharaj, Mayavadis, they have their end names as Ananda, like Akhilananda Maharaj or Jayananda Maharaj, something like that. So Mayavad does not give any Ananda. And this material life may seem very attractive, but Mayavad that has been taught by Shankaracharya was not at least khichdi. It had regulations, and it did not mix with, this nationalism and all. But then after this, Prabhupada was there, mainly, he was the one who actually took all these efforts to propagate the Bhakti, cult, and smash all the Mayavadis. So we also have a false tendency to become, false gurus for some material comfort, some, name, fame and all. That if I become a guru, or every one of this has, this that, okay, if I become a very big book distributor, then I'm a guru, then I am your guru. Recently, I remember over here, some counselees, they call their counselee, the lady counselee, as Guru Ma. And I was like, what is Guru Ma? Like, so Prabhupada had condemned this. Prabhupada did not approve of this. So then, This type of, things will keep on going on. So primarily in this particular shloka, we are saying that what is the destination of the worshipper of demigod, then the destination of the worshippers of impersonal absolute truth. Then even the sages and demigods, they do not know how Krishna appears in the form of man. And this absolute truth can be understood only by the process of negation. And we saw these pseudo religions, how they are ruining the life of innocent people. So these 5 main points we actually saw in this particular mantra. So I give rest to my speech over here. If anybody has any questions, doubts, queries, you're all free to ask me.
Mataji, can you just elaborate a little on the negation part that we talked about during the session today?
Yeah, this negation means, as I previously also told, that negation means to not accept. You just keep on neglecting. Negation means that you just say that, okay, he's not the supreme, there is no supreme, demigod worshippers are only the, highest. That is called actually negation. You reject basically.
Thank you.
Any more queries or questions?
Hare Krishna, Mataji. So Mataji, the demigods are also the devotee of the Krishna, right? They are Vaishnava, like we can say.
Yes, they are Vaishnava.
They are pure, or they are like what kind of devotee they are? Like Lord Shiva is a Sambhu, like he's the pure Vaishnava, right? Topmost Vaishnava. So like other demigods, in which category they comes? Like
No. See, these demigods, no, they are also, they are also Sakam Bhaktas only, but they have more powers than the human beings. Than we human beings, they have more power than us, right? And because they have pleased the Supreme Lord, then those powers have been given to them. Now, if anybody goes to these demigods and wants those powers of that demigod, but the demigod will say that, my master, whoever is my, like he gave the example of this Chandi Dasa or the Keshav Kashmiri. So they will also say that I also have a master. Instead of worshipping me, why don't you worship my master from whom I have got this, And these demigod worshippers became demigod worshippers when they did a lot of tapasya. They did a lot of penance and all, and they became demigods. Now you might say that why do not these demigod worshippers have access to the spiritual world? Then why do they have their own planets? But this is the plan of the Lord. Like how in India, everybody cannot become the Prime Minister of India, right? Everybody, there has to be some department. So, okay, there is one Prime Minister of India, one supreme person, one supreme personality of Godhead. But now he has ordained, he has given, departments. Okay, railway department, health department, wealth management department, all different departments are there. So similarly, these demigods are also departmental head of different planets, or like, so if example, even if you see there are 33 crore demigods, 33 crore Devi Devta hai, right? So these demigods are also actually departmental heads of different departments. Like there is the sun department, the moon department, then the wind department, and the rain department. They are also departmental heads, and they've been given that responsibility. So they are assisting Krishna in his pastime of this creation of this material world. The creation of the material world is also pastime of the Supreme Lord, where he's creating and he's maintaining and he's annihilating. This is also one of the pastime of the Supreme Lord. But this pastime is not relishable to the pure devotees. What pastimes are relishable to the pure devotees? Those pastimes which take you more closer to Krishna, these pastimes are relishable to the pure devotees or his unalloyed devotees. Like whenever you are hearing the pastime of, Krishna playing with his gopas, or Krishna killing the demons, or Krishna having a loving relationship with his gopis, you relish these pastimes. Do you relish the pastime of how Krishna created this material world, 7 planets up and 7 planets down, and then he created the ego and the mind and the intelligence? We don't relish these pastimes of the Supreme Lord. But for a better understanding, then you start from the base level and then you progress to the higher level of appreciating Krishna's pastime with his unalloyed devotees. So that is how, the demigod worshippers are also, so the, devotees of the Supreme Lord. And they also wish one day that they can also enter into the realm of Golok Vrindavan. Okay, Prabhu, does that answer your question?
Thanks. Yeah, Mataji. Thanks for such a detailed explanation. Yeah, thanks. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else has?
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Yes, Sushil Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. I have a small question, Mataji. The principal demigods, Lord Brahma and Shiva, both are high-class devotees of Krishna. But what is the status of Lord Ganesha or Kartika or many other? Lord Ganesha, particularly, I would like to know, because he helped Vyasdeva in writing the scriptures.
Yes.
So what is his position, Mataji?
So if you see, Lord Ganesha is the son of Lord Shiva, right? You know
Yes.
that from Lord Shiva only Lord Ganesha has come. And Lord Ganesha also is the pure devotee of the Supreme Lord. Now, if you see, from where did Ganesha get his powers of being Vignaharta or writing, the whole of the scriptures, what Vyasdeva was dictating and he was writing. But do you know that there was one condition by Vyasdev kept, that you have to understand and then you have to write. So it was not blindly Lord Ganesha was writing those scriptures. When Lord Ganesha was writing, he was understanding what Vyasdev is saying and then he was writing. Or in that matter, even Srimad Bhagavatam that, he was writing, he was understanding. And then that's how Vyasadev got time to think that how will I put these pastimes of the Supreme Lord in a more easy and understandable way for generations to come. So in one way, Lord Ganesha is also a pure devotee of the Supreme Lord. But his limitations are there, that he has only limited powers. He does not have all the powers that the Supreme Lord has. He can bestow only little thing that is being asked. But for the permanent existence, then you will have to go to Lord Krishna. His powers, the demigod worshipper powers are also limited. They don't have all the powers that the Supreme Lord has. Okay, Prabhu?
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Anybody else has? See, very important, because I know in our movement also, there are many devotees who are doing two things simultaneously. They are sailing in the Krishna conscious boat also, and they are sailing in the demigod worship boat also. But if you're sailing in two boats, what will happen? In two boats, you're having your two legs. And with the boats go apart, then you will fall down again into the darkest region of this material existence. So हमें एक किनारे पे होना. You'll have to be on one side. You cannot dangle in two sides. You cannot be sometimes Krishna Bhakta and sometimes demigod, worshipper. You will have to move in one side, because just now only we saw that any demigod worshipper will go into the darkest region of this material existence. So we as devotees also, we have to have full faith in Krishna. And how will you develop full faith in Krishna? Only by studying the scriptures, only by knowing more about that particular person, more about Krishna, you will have full faith in Krishna. And that is why these two books that are there are so prominent and so perfect books, the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam. They will develop your deep faith in Krishna. These are the two books you just have to read. No other things. And somebody will say Hanuman Chalisa karo, Devi ka paath karo, and go to this temple and go to that temple. No, strictly Krishna temple. We'll have to be very staunch and determined that no, I might get so many difficulties in my life, no matter. I'm suffering because of my own past misdeeds only. But I will stick around to Krishna only. I will not go to any demigod. I will not go to even Lord Hanuman, even if he is a pure devotee. I will not go to Lord Shiva, even if he is a Vaishnavam Yatha Shambho. I will not go to any Lord Ganesha, not any Mother Durga, who is actually the Shakti of the Supreme Lord, the energy of the Supreme Lord. No, I will go to only Krishna only. Okay, Prabhu. Any more question?
Mother, this Ramcharitmanas, if anyone reads, that is okay, or that is also not recommended?
No.
That is also Ramayana.
Yes. You all can read Ramcharitmanas because it is about Lord Ram.
Ramayana, Rama.
Yeah, yes. You can read. That's no problem about that.
Okay.
Any more question? Okay. So it is 10 o'clock, and these what do you say? These mantras, they are going to take a little longer time. And as I previously also told you, I'm going a bit slow. Right? The next mantra we will have, I think, 17 paragraphs or 15 paragraphs are there. So again, a little more longer explanation and all. But ये ना आपके लिए foundation lay कर रहे हैं हम. In Bhakti Shastri, we are laying a foundation, a very concrete foundation, where you will be building up your, Bhakti bungalow. If the foundation is strong, then your Bhakti bungalow will be very standing firm. Nobody can shirk you from, worshipping the Supreme Lord. Varna kya hoga if we do not have that right knowledge, if that foundation is only weak, then that building might fall apart of a little earthquake. Little earthquake means what? आपके जीवन में अगर कुछ अनहोनी हो जाती है, if something happens and some misery, major misery comes in your life, you will be shirked away. You will be thrown away. Then you will be neither even doing demigod worship, neither you will be doing Krishna worship. You will not be doing any worship and you will turn out to be an atheist. I don't believe in any God. Because ये दुखों का पहाड़ मेरे सर पे आ गया है. This, burden of miseries has come on my head. So if the foundation is laid strong, then you will stand strong. You will not shirk. You will be chanting your 16 rounds, even if there is hell lot of a calamity in your life. Your everything has been taken away by the Supreme Lord. You are on the road. Still, you will think that no, for me, worshipping the Supreme Lord is only the final thing in my life. I will not shirk away from, worshipping the Supreme Lord. I will not become an atheist. I will not become an impersonalist. I will not become a demigod worship, but I will be loyal only to Krishna. Just as a wife is chaste only to her husband, the devotee will be chaste only to Krishna and nobody else. Okay, Prabhus, maybe I might find very, what do you say, very, very loud enough or very strong enough in speaking. But this is the truth. And the truth has to be spoken, straightforward. There is no mixing. हाँ, आप थोड़ा ये भी कर सकते हो, आप थोड़ा so devotees will not butter anybody. Devotees will not mend or bend for any other, person's comfortness. Or a devotee will not bend or mend so that, he's obliged to that other person. Over here, we are not obliged to anybody. We are obliged only to Krishna, and we will be obliged only to Krishna. And that is why we'll always speak the truth. Whether it might be hurting somebody's sentiments, somebody might be worshipping a demigod, uski badi asakti hogi uske saath, but the truth is truth. 2 plus 2 is equal to 5. Krishna is the ultimate truth, and that is only the truth. Okay, Prabhus?